But if we go on from there, there was a thing called Operation Argus. It was a secret U.S. military experiment of 1958 in which they, believe it or not, blew atomic bombs off on the edges of space shortly after the discovery of the Van Allen belts. Argus 1 was a 1.7 kiloton blast, and on August 27th of that year, and they had more low yield, but later they would get into firing off H-bombs. And what the big guy did, it was create a new Van Allen belt having a radiation of 45 rads per second. Got that number?
Mm-hmm. 45 rads per second.
Yeah, your lifetime thing is 25 rads, and this is 45 rads per second. So, and it was theorized that it would decay away in a matter of months, but it took a whole 10 years to do it. Which means that the natural belt must also have a decay rate. Follow me?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a reservoir. In fact, that's what Van Allen compared it to. It's a reservoir. Only it's not water, it's radiation. So to stay up, if you have a reservoir of water and you're draining out down the pipes to feed the public, you must have a stream of equal size coming in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Equal volume, or your reservoir will begin to run dry. So therefore, outer space is the only conceivable thing that can be recharging this. So, if you got a 10-year decay rate, that's a 10% decay rate, and it's been found, we finally found out, 3.2 rads per second is the continuous radiation in there. So 10% of that must be continuously added. So outer space must be 0.32 rads per second. Now 0.32 times 60 seconds comes out to what? About 18 rads a minute? So you're going to be in that thing for about an hour, all sections of it. You're going to be in outer space for a lot longer. So in outer space, from the end of the Van Allen shield to the moon, around the moon, onto the surface of the moon, which has absolutely no shielding, right?
Yeah.
They had no Van Allen shield.
Yeah, they've got no atmosphere either.
Back into your ship, up into the space, and back through the Van Allen shield. You probably got about 10,000 REMs stuck up here. But they didn't. There's no radiation sickness. There's no cancer. They're all alive and kicking. Well, most of them. So the whole point is, they had no shielding. How the hell did they do it? See what I mean about the journey you just couldn't possibly do because you would never make it?
Pretty hard, isn't it? That motor's gonna roll.
Now, in Apollo 17, the trip was 12 days long. That was the longest flight made. There are over 1 million seconds in 12 days. At 0.32 rads per section, the total exposure for each astronaut, and in my book, it's spelled ASTRO-NOT. I did not invent that. Some very clever little girl invented that. It would be 320,000 REMs. Now they're talking a 1-year trip to Mars. Haha.
Oh dear.
NASA, of course, was yet to prove that they could even get a man back into orbit. And it would not be for another year after Bush got re-elected before the shuttle flew again. The return to flight mission, flown by Space Shuttle Discovery, was plagued with delay after delay.
Mid-2005, NASA had everything riding on Discovery. But an 11th-hour drama put the Space Shuttle's return to flight on hold. Discovery was transported back from the launch pad for yet another modification to the external fuel tank. This time, NASA feared fragments of ice could result in similar damage that caused the Columbia disaster 2 years ago.
Late today, one of the window covers on the Discovery shuttle fell and struck a thermal tile near the tail. NASA's launch manager said the damaged tile will be replaced tonight. She said it should not delay the launch.
We'll be carrying enough supplies aboard the orbiter that if, even if it wasn't damaged to the outside of the orbiter, but some other problem to the orbiter, we would have the ability to stay on the space station for a longer period of time. So I feel pretty confident in that we're not going to need to do that type of repair, but if it happens, we have alternatives.
This is NASA's New Orleans facility, the place where they make the fuel tanks for the shuttle. So let's check it out, see what changes they've made to the tank to guarantee foam can never fall off again. The massive external tank is assembled in pieces. So that's the one the foam came off. Each carries almost 7 million litres of propellant. Foam protects the fuel tank from a build-up of ice.
Now, this section of tank here may look pretty nondescript, but believe me, the amount of attention it's getting, because it was here where that big chunk of foam fell off and caused the Columbia disaster.
Foam is sprayed onto the entire tank. The critical sections receive surgeon-like attention.
Here they're putting the final touches on the fuel tank. The most amazing thing is that it's all been done by hand. Been hand cut, hand sanded. An enormous amount of effort has been put into just getting this just right.
Astronauts now regularly inspect any changes made to the assembly process. Commander Brent Jett is preparing for his 4th mission.
What changes are you seeing here?
Well, it's pretty interesting. If you walk around on this particular tank, they've identified a debris zone, and there's certain parts of the tank that they're redoing using the new technique. And there's some parts of the tank which will be on the backside, which won't be near the orbiter during ascent, that they're leaving alone. So it's real interesting. You can walk around the tank and see the new areas being redone and compare it to the old parts of the foam. And they were able to identify some problems with the process that they had before, and so they've redone it, and they're reworking that to prevent debris from coming off.
Recently, the task force said NASA had failed to meet 3 out of 15 goals, including long-term improvements to thermal shielding and fixing tiles in space. Yet the group said NASA came close in those 3 cases, and so the shuttle should not be prevented from flying.
On July 26, 2005, almost a week after the 26th anniversary of the moon landing, Shuttle Discovery was finally headed. But during takeoff, the falling debris that doomed Columbia reoccurred.
We decided that it was safe to fly as is. Obviously, with the event that we've had, we were wrong.
Unfortunately, it's very difficult to determine why foam comes away from the shuttle's fuel tank. And they worked on it for the last 2.5 years, and they obviously have a lot more work to do if they're going to stop this foam coming away.
Discovery narrowly managed to escape the same fate as Columbia, as its tiles were repaired during an EVA.
Okay, that came out very easily, probably even less force. It looks like this big patient is cured.
Unfortunately, NASA's been saddled with a bad design. The shuttle was put together in the 1970s, and fundamentally, it's a poor design. And they have to live with that for the next 5 years until they can retire the shuttle.
Again, the shuttle program was grounded. 2 months later, the Chinese took another bold leap. October 16th, 2005. Shenzhou 6 was launched. This one purported to carry 2 taikonauts into space. Command pilot Fi Junlong and flight engineer Ni Haisheng. Again, foreign reporters were prohibited from covering the launch. And the Chinese press, who were allowed to attend, were warned by authorities that they may have to hand in all their film. Why the secrecy? Interestingly, much like the Apollo 11 crew, Junlong and Haisheng were put into quarantine for 2 weeks immediately after their return.
NASA will press ahead with another attempt to launch the Space Shuttle Discovery, despite finding a crack in the insulation foam around the fuel tank. Scientists also revealed that a piece of foam the size of a potato chip had broken off. NASA engineers insist the shuttle is still safe to fly and will make a 3rd launch attempt in the early hours of tomorrow morning, Australian time. 2 earlier attempts were called off due to bad weather.
If the space shuttle does not finish its mission, it might mean that dozens of astronauts in training here might never get to space, and thousands of NASA employees could find their jobs in jeopardy. But at nearly $5 billion a year, many critics consider the shuttle NASA's white elephant.
What a white elephant is, it's a gift you give to someone that is so magnificent that person can't refuse it, but it's so expensive to maintain it will ruin them.
If it can't fly soon, critics say, it might not be worth flying at all.